Hey guys, welcome to Power Within with me, Amy, your heart whisperer therapist. I'm a good wife.
Vicky, I'm the queen of rapid hypnosis.
Together with the Eastwoods, and we're going to be covering therapy,
Hypnotherapy,
couples relationship therapy,
hypnosis, and all the other shit in between.
If it's current, if it's relevant,
we'll be covering it. Stay tuned. Hey guys, welcome back to Power Within. Today our topic is going to be grief, which is going to be quite a difficult one, and it's not always just about losing someone and grieving that way. It's also about people who grieve relationships and
jobs, situations, friendship. I think people see grief as bereavement. And I remember at uni that I didn't want to sit that session because that was my take on grief. It was bereavement. I categorically didn't want to be a bereavement counsellor. So I wanted to avoid that session altogether.
And we've been wanting to avoid this one as well.
We've probably talked about it for 2 months, and being real, it's going to be a hard subject. It's probably not going to be a part one, definitely going to be a couple of parts. We might have to pause in moments, and you just bear with us because me especially, I'm an ugly crier. So if we have to pause, if I look horrendous, like Vix, give me a slap, then... But we're here.
Just not out to a mum that I've not.
Yeah.
I want to get one back. But no, there is actually a grief cycle as well. We have wrote a few things down today because it's probably not the easiest topic what we'll do. So we wrote a few things down and also made notes on the phone as well. So you have to bear with us.
Yeah, because when we talk about the grief cycle, we can share our cycle or we can share an experience of a cycle, but there's some proper theory behind it. And the cycle, as we'll share during this episode, is real. And some people will ride it like a wave. Some people will skip parts. Some people will embrace it all in one go. There is no right or wrong. So when we talk about grief, one, we don't have it figured out. Even as therapists with grief, it's something we avoid if we can help it. Mm-hmm. Our hearts are on our sleeves, so we don't take that work on, if at all. I think some of the grief work I've done is more, one was about a job, one was about a relationship. And even when I've just discussed it before we've got on camera, I think I'm still grieving rupturing my ACL and not having that mobility that I want. So the grief cycle is real.
The grieving the loss of the movement of your knee. So it meant quite a lot to you, with like you've like lost football, lost like most of your friends, that social what you used to always have. What was your like escape really? And I think that's what's hurt you a little bit with and even when we were snowboarding, even you was in tears at certain points because you couldn't board at one point. Obviously you had to then, I gave you some pain relief because you're not really a pain relief kind of girl, but afterwards you got on with it and enjoyed it a little bit more.
Yeah, and you learn to adapt with any part of grief. You learn a new version of you, which I'm having to. And when I was making notes a little around one of the stages of bargaining, you'd do anything to bring that loved one back. You'd do anything for that version back. Right now, if there was a magic cure, if somebody said to me, give me 20 grand, give me a car, give me whatever, I would absolutely sign a deal to have
the wife is gone.
Maybe not. Maybe I'll accept money.
I'm only kidding.
But carry on.
No, but so the grief cycle, the where we normally go through things is that there's 5 stages of grief, which we can elaborate a little bit more. There's like obviously your denial, the anger, the bargaining, depression, and the acceptance. And I think all them 5, which we'll go through each stage, you can elaborate on most of them. It is hard to understand each cycle, and I think most of it is, even over time and over years, it doesn't go away. Maybe it gets a little bit easier, but it's always there. And you've got a good theory with the tennis ball. The tennis ball theory is quite a good one, which you can speak about.
Yeah, and I think I read something about Macmillan earlier, and although they say is the grief cycle helpful, I think when people see it as a cycle, it's almost like you have to tick that part off to say, right, I've gone through that step, I've gone through that step, now I can move forward to the next step. Almost like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If you look further into the theory, there's a 7 stage, there's another author that will say it's a 12 stage. You might only go through 2 or 3 and come out really quickly from grief and learn to manage life the way that you know how. And somebody else can sit in a cycle for 5 years, for 10 years, for the rest of your life because you're not ready for that acceptance. And there is no right or wrong. And how my supervisor described grief, especially when people haven't felt the grief the same way you will. And that's totally natural because the loss is different, isn't it? A loss to you would be different to me.
There's no right or wrong. Everyone suffers grief in a different way, and they have to learn to deal with it. And they can go to therapists, hypnotherapists, and everything to help them, guide them a little bit. But only they will accept it when they're ready.
And that may be never. But how she described it, which was a good terminology for me, was see grief as a tennis ball and it's in your pocket. And obviously, just imagine you've all got a tennis ball in your pocket now. I wouldn't be able to sit straight. I'd feel it would be digging into my leg. As time moves on, she said, imagine you have a bag and that tennis ball, you put it in the bag. So the tennis ball will never change shape or size, but you carry it differently. So you put it in a bag like a rucksack and you carry that rucksack forever. And then as time goes further on, that rucksack maybe becomes even bigger so that you have to move a few things around in that rucksack before you see the tennis ball, but it's still there, it's still yellow, it's still in your face. Over the years, eventually it becomes where maybe it's in a suitcase. So you really have to move stuff about. The tennis ball in the grief will always be the same, but your life, the things around it will become different.
Because you've built a new life and it's a new era of your life, I think. And although you've opened that suitcase, one minute you can't see the tennis ball, then all of a sudden that's when people go, well, it hit me today. Well, we had to just pause in for a second, but now we're back.
We're back, and that was probably quicker than I thought it would be into this topic. But it reminds us, one of the quotes was, grief is like an ocean and it will come in waves.
The only thing you have to learn is how to swim, unfortunately, but it's something what we will all experience in our life, even from a young age or up to an older age. Losing people is very difficult. I think you experienced it with one of my family members, which was Karen. I think she was only 42 when she passed. I was really close to her, and you got quite close as well.
I think that was my first experience of really probably feeling grief, but through you. And that's probably when I experienced the anger part of the grief cycle because, you know, she was only 42. I felt a massive injustice for her.
But people lose people as well a lot younger, and I think you have to be thankful at the same time.
It's easier said than done, isn't it?
Absolutely.
And we can always go, someone else has got it worse, or someone else has got that, but that isn't going to change your grief in that moment.
No, it's not at all. But you've got the denial part as well, which sometimes the disbelief, the shock, numbness, refusal to accept. I think that's quite a difficult one.
Yeah, and there's you might go through these cycles. You might breeze through the first 3 and then sit in the depression side for a real long period.
But I think that's the numbness side as well with the depression. So I don't think I experienced the depression, but I'm not really sure. Probably because the numbness was surrounding that area. And that wasn't through Karen. It was in Cowan. And again, obviously, my niece ended up losing her mum, which was hard for her because she was only 16 at the time. My other niece was, I think she just turned 18. So they were so young to lose the parent. And then, like, moving forward, then I was 42 when I lost my mum. So then I actually don't realise if I went through that depression stage and it was just the numbness. And the numbness is sometimes, it might be part of depression, but I think sometimes you wake up in the morning and you think it's not real. What you've just been through. I think that's the hardest thing, is waking up every morning and then just thinking it was a bad dream and then realising that's when it hits you.
And I think that's the if you Google the cycle of grief, the very first point is denial. And it is that numbness and the shock and the refusal to accept reality. And I think there's times where you appear to be really strong with it. And then there's times where I think you just hide it so well because you feel like you have to. But whether it's the denial stage or there's an element of depression in there, the acceptance being one of the stages, you may or may never go through that, or there might be something significant that happens that you go, I have to accept reality. But I think when we talk about the grief, and I think about my dad passing away last year, I sometimes think, am I cold? Because my grief cycle with him has been quite speedy. And I do love my dad, and obviously I miss my dad. But I don't know if I grieved without knowing that I was grieving 25 years ago when he left. Because when he left, when we was no longer a family unit, I don't think I ever saw my dad in that same light ever again.
Yeah.
There'd be times where he'd be really good. He'd be at the other end of the phone, or he'd deliberately come after work. He'd be there. We'd be present. He might bung me 20 quid as a dad. But I never saw him in that same light ever again. And so whether I sound heartless or not, the anger wasn't there for me with my dad. The denial obviously wasn't, because I was watching him through it. But there was no bargaining either. I wouldn't say, oh, I'd do anything to bring him back, or I'd do anything to give him life again. Because I think I just accepted it straight out. Like, he was early 60, but he'd smoked since he was about 12. And for anyone that does smoke, this isn't a criticism, but all the warnings of it causes cancer, it causes mouth cancer. My dad become them pictures. Like, he got it on his tongue, he got it in his throat. The surgery that that the NHS were able to do for him was incredible. Like, we can joke, but they cut a part of his arm out, which had a tattoo on, and that become part of his tongue. He never ate a meal again after that the way he would want to. He didn't taste food, but he almost got a second chance. And he carried on smoking, and that was his go-to. If I'd go and see him, he'd be in the back room, he'd have his beer, he'd have a cigarette. And I said, Dad, come on. And his words were, well, there's no point in shutting the barn door when the horse has already bolted. And I guess he was doing exactly what he wanted to do in his final couple of years. You know, he'd work as much as he could, but his downtime was having a beer and having a fag. So my acceptance to him, whether that was 25 years ago or now, for me, that acceptance and that cycle has felt relatively smooth.
But it wasn't in your life every day, though, was it? That's the difference. And I think that's it with parents. You always have that one strong element of a parent, and that to you is your mum.
Yeah. And I don't know if she got the same diagnosis, how I would even respond, because it would, I don't know, it would be horrendous. But I think with my dad, I go back into my sort of processing mode. I remember sitting in our bathroom upstairs, sitting having a wee, if you even care. And I looked at this space, and it didn't represent probably how I felt. It's been our bathroom forever since we've lived here. It felt messy, it felt ugly, it felt old. I spent the week smashing it up, didn't I? If you remember, I didn't want any help really. I pulled the tiles off, ripped the bath out. Obviously needed some assistance because we're not that good at DIY. But I felt like at the end of that week, that helped me process it. And now I look at that space and go, it represents us. It represents probably how I need to feel. And that's something that's probably come out in some of my self-awareness with my supervision, is that when my life feels out of control, something gets ripped apart in the house.
You change something.
Mm.
And maybe that's how you process things. You just change things to meet your needs.
Yeah, I describe it. I can't control this. I'm going to control this. And if you think about it, when your mum passed away, Vic, that night we pulled back up here, we rolled a barrel of beer into our bar out the back, and we probably drank our emotions, not excessively, but it was probably, we was in lockdown. Every wall got painted, I think, in them 2 weeks, and we probably didn't speak a lot, but that probably helped us just process what was going on, and we drank some of our emotions.
That's why we like beer. Not too much.
We liked it before, but there is no right or wrong, and we definitely are not doing this because we've got it figured out and we can give you an easy an easy pass through it. We can't. We've known people, we've had clients, we've got family members.
But just to know that you're not alone as well. No one's alone. That people can reach out either to us or to speak to like one of your friends or family.
I think it's, for me, especially when we talk about the grief of the cycle grief, it's to understand that, okay, that's what's happening for me here. I've not gone through that stage yet. But the biggest thing is that's okay. It's okay if you're okay today. And one of your friends reached out, didn't they?
No, I actually read one of the posts, and then I actually reached out to her and said, one day, I can't say it's going to be anytime soon. This was a couple of months ago. Because she did actually reach out to us, because she says, I can't believe that you're doing this podcast. It's absolutely brilliant. She loves it. And I know it's a bit of a Marmite scenario because some people love it, some people hate it. And I know it's just us talking or sharing our experiences or trying to help people move on from other traumatic stuff what they've been through in their lives. But yeah, I just says, do you mind if I share this post? And I can't read it out because I'll end up crying. You might end up crying halfway through, and then I might have to continue. I don't know how it's going to work, but I did say to her, I will share some stuff if that's okay. Which you can start with it.
I will try to read this out. This is somebody that you've known in the distance who...
Yeah, I used to be friends with her years and years ago. But obviously, thanks to Facebook, obviously you do see each other's stories and where they're going in life. And she was a good friend called
And
Claire.
I think thanks to Facebook, she was able to just express herself in words. She didn't need any validation. She didn't need any sympathy from it. But maybe she felt a little bit lighter once she pressed it. And I will try and read it. If not, you have to finish it.
I'll try.
We'll pause. We'll cry. Apologies if this is in like clips. But yes, she lost her mum. And she's wrote, grief is a funny thing. I think I was grieving before I lost you.
Is that all you got to? I spent most of these 2 weeks crying and wishing for something different. Since then, over 3 months, I felt lost and numb and very alone. I didn't realise how alone I would feel.
Apologies. I felt lost and numb and so very alone. I didn't realise how alone I would feel, but I've been okay. These last few days have been very hard though. I felt like I'm barely holding on, and then today it hit me like a ton of bricks. I've been sat crying, looking at old photos and listening to your favourite songs. I've looked at them photos and listened to these songs over the last couple of months, but they hit me different today.
I didn't post this for sympathy. I'm posting this because I know nearly all of us suffer from loss. over these last couple of months, I've wondered if my reactions are normal and why I'm not worse. And if I've loved my mum as much as I thought I did, I guess I want to share my experience because others feel like I have it. I am okay and to be okay. This is okay not to be okay and then to be okay again. For the record, I am okay now. Thanks again. And that was quite a nice post from her. And when I read it, I could sort of relate to a lot of that. But I did feel like it was very touching at the time.
And that's a few months old because we've put off this episode for a while. We knew it was going to be horrendous.
I know you said there's a part 2, but I don't think I really want the part 2 of this.
Yeah, that's fine. It might be something in the future. But I think the reality is, even with her words, some days you will be okay and other times you won't. And that's okay. Treat it like the ocean. Treat it like them waves. Sometimes they will crash and they will hurt. And sometimes you'll be able to smile. And I think that phrase that time's a healer is fraud because it doesn't heal. You learn to manage. You learn to maybe move forward. For us, we've got the boys that keep us quite grounded to count our blessings.
But obviously life does move on and it's learning to create a new life without them.
Mm.
But like my mum did say that, I'm sorry I can't be on your next journey.
Mm. And maybe this is it. This podcast we've took a long time to press record. We're annoying people, and there's people gaining from it. So whilst people are gaining from it, we will continue gifting our time, trying to change a little bit. And grief is that horrible topic. People don't know what to say to you. They don't know how to act. People don't know how they should react.
Mm.
And we've not done this to say this is the answer and this is the answer because we don't definitely have the answers.
Just to let you know that you're not alone out there. People
are going through this. Some of and
even the professional people what do deal with like bereavement and stuff, they might understand it more, but they still go through the same process as anybody else.
Yeah. And like even some of this stuff some of the quotes that we tend to share when we've looked at it around grief. And the goal of grief is not to forget, but to remember with less pain. And that's the reality, isn't it? So, there's no right or wrong way to grieve. There is only your way. So even when we share here of some of our experiences, pulling that bathroom out for me helped me rationalise my emotions that week. But it was probably 25 years ago and my dad left that I naively was grieving because I was never getting that same version again. And that isn't me bad-mouthing him. That is the family unit I knew was never the same again.
Yeah.
And I accept that because that's how life was.
I think for me, I'm very good at masking stuff because even when it came down to like driving back to Sheffield and back, I think it was obviously Christmas time and I never listened to any music, if you remember me telling you. Because I remember that even if the future, I would have to, any of them songs what came alight, I would end up remembering by the song. So I'm thinking, I don't want this feeling.
And you're quite good with that. You've shared a few experiences with me before where a song will transport you back to it. And so, yes, you were categorically not listening to anything.
I was kind of numb going there, numb coming back, trying to deal with it, the emotions of other people, like the family and the friends. But then it was terrible, I think, even before.
And I think when you then sit into yours, it's probably something that, and I'm not putting words into your mouth, but that you struggle to be what's yours, because it's easy to go, right, well, I'll help other people and I'll make sure they're okay. And you've never read it, but like I had to write a 3,000 word essay at uni around grief. And I'm typing away and I thought I nailed it. But it was meant to be how I had dealt with grief. And I put you in there, I put your brother in there, I put other people's experiences in there. And she failed me. And so I've retyped it again and I submitted it. And she failed me, but I wasn't self-aware, I wasn't reflecting on me. Because in my mind, if you were okay, I was going to be okay. And if it was easier to talk about other people's cycle on my eyes than it was to talk about mine.
Yeah.
And on my very last day of year 2, she passed me the night before, and I went into uni and I said, I feel like you passed me out of pity. And she says, Amy, and this is why I'm getting to this, is she says, you will have clients that will make as much progress at that point as they can. And no matter what work you do with them, you can't take them any further because they're not ready.
Yeah.
And she said to me, your growth has come a long way in the last year. Me failing you wasn't going to take you any further.
Yeah.
So they're the sort of comments that will stick with me when I then do client work, is that sometimes we will take them as far as we can.
Yeah.
Because they're not ready to go any further, and that's okay.
Well, this has not been the best.
It was never going to be, but we have got a few little quotes in terms of therapy.
And the hypnosis one.
And the grief, so it's...
No, even in the deepest sorrow, there is a calm centre within you. Hypnotherapy can help you return to your inner stillness where that love still lives, which was quite good, if I can help somebody, then I will without the feeling, but it's not always that easy, I don't think.
Yeah, and I like the one, it says, the subconscious holds the echoes of every goodbye. Hypnotherapy helps you listen, not to forget, but to remember with peace. And there was a session last year and this lady had lost a child. And in her initial instant, she was thinking, you're not taking the memories from me.
But it's not about taking it away, is it? It's about learning you to deal with that. And even if you didn't say goodbye, you can actually have that subconscious. And even with my mum, she even said to bring the positive in, even though she had such a short period of time, that we've got to be thankful for even just for that, because, and I asked her why and what she meant by it. She says, well, people like sort of die in their sleep, they die in a car crash, they have heart attacks, and they never get a chance to say goodbye. So even the last moments and stuff, she was still being positive. So maybe that's where I do get a lot of, even in the worst case scenarios, I try to think of the positive.
Yeah, and I think that time was hard, and I think we probably wasn't ready even today to have this discussion.
No.
Maybe in the future we can touch it again, because we thought we'd be able to do it with a little bit of a pause. We thought it was going to be an hour long, we'd do it as a 2-part, but in reality, grief is such a horrible discussion that even we can't manage it, so we're not going to do a part 2 just yet. Our emotions can't cope with that.
No,
so.
Exactly. But guys, I'm sorry it's been such a depressing podcast, but hopefully the next one will be a little bit more exciting, a bit more upbeat than grief. But not for now anyway. Thank you for listening, and any problems, any messages that you would like to send us, then message it.
Be safe.
Thank you.